Okay, share. All right. And I'm on. Chapter 1. The old man stood alone in the cold. Alone, he thought. I'm born alone. I'll most likely die alone. But I don't have to stay cold. So he walked into the warm studio, sat down at the beautiful new set that they made, and said, here I am doing a talk show tonight. This beautiful Friday night, cold, brisk Friday night, doing a talk show when here I am, I was going to say, when I really wanted to do a literary game show. Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Welcome to Right to Speak on StrongIsland.com, Strong Island Radio and Television.com. And if you've watched the show in the past, you'll see that I normally have a few friends who are here, but it's a Friday. A lot of people getting ready. They're doing Halloween parties. Some of my friends are comedians. They have gigs. There's a lot of people couldn't make it, so I am moving to. This is our last Friday night show, and in less than 2 weeks, we'll be back on Wednesday. Right to Speak will be back on Wednesday, and if you were watching the last show, I had a guest on, Brianna Gervat, and I think we'll get her picture up, Brianna Gervat. And she was here. Here comes the picture. Brianna, that's, I believe that was in Jordan, that picture taken. She travels all over. We had a lot of fun. So Brianna is going to join me on Wednesday nights. And Brianna wrote a book called Mosaic. We'll show the book. And last week, when the show ended, we realized we didn't tell you that you can find this book. It's available on Amazon.com. So that's Mosaic by Brianna Gervat. And now you can come back to me. So that's available, Mosaic, on Amazon.com. And we had so much fun. I said, you see, I'm trying to center myself. Here you go. I'm centered. I'm solo, baby. I'm solo. The phone lines are open. Call up. You want to call? Phone lines are open. I'm going to keep my hands down a lot because I found watching the show last week and I aggravated myself because I was doing this. I do this a lot. I know. And when I perform stand-up comedy, I seem to say, right, you're right, right. And I move my hands, and you're right. And I want to strangle that Benny Rizzuti person, right? So I'm going to keep my hands. I'm watching. So anyway, Brianna Gervat is coming, and we're going to be doing the show together. It's still going to be Right to Speak on Wednesdays, 7 to 8 p.m. And the show is going to develop now because, I originally wanted to do a game show. I wanted to make writing fun. I wanted to make reading and writing fun and keep print alive. That's why I have all these great books here, and we'll be talking about them. And I want to keep print because reading a book is so much more personal. There's something more intimate about reading a book. And a book just sucks you in. It takes you in, and it's fun. I love reading a book and turning the pages. I like doing that. I don't like that. Don't earmark the page. Use a bookmark or a piece of paper or something. And I love reading a book where, my son has Kindle. A lot of young people, you're reading on phones. And that's good. I'm not saying that's bad, but it's nice to have a book once in a while. So this show, Right to Speak, we keep print alive. So Brianna and I got to talking and said, well, instead of doing that game show, why don't we do a writer's workshop live? Wouldn't that be cool? A live writer's workshop where Brianna and I will write. We'll have other guests come in. I have an author, Taylor Von Arsdale, who has contacted me and wants to come on the show. She's going to call. She's in the West Coast, and she'll be calling. She'll be calling up, and she wants to be involved. She wrote a book called, I'll have to tell you, meant to write it down. It has cocaine in the title. So I'll tell you later when I'm going to show a video or something. I'll get back to Taylor Von Arsdale's book. Taylor lives in the West Coast. She's originally from Long Island, so she wants to talk about her Long Island roots. But that will be in about a week and a half. But tonight, I do have a special call-in guest, my old friend, very great friend, my best friend in the 80s, Mr. Steve Oakes. And here's his book. Maybe we could show the book. He's done many things, but he's also author of the book Midmen, which is also available. Midmen is #1 bestseller on Amazon.com. It's also won many awards. It's an award-winning book. And we will be speaking to Steve around 7:25. He'll be calling, which is 4:25 his time. So if he's watching this, he'll know to call me at 4:25. It's a big week for me. That's one of the reasons I tried getting people, but I was very busy and I had a lot going on. And I'm wearing this shirt that you see, TKO Strong. And that's my nephew who has what's known as microvillus collusion. Microvillus, see, I should have wrote that down. See, right to speak. Microvillus inclusion disease. And it is a disease that he was born with it, and his intestines does not work properly. And it doesn't absorb the food or digest the food. So we're going to go to that video right now. It's a quick video on the TKO fundraiser video. Okay, and we're going to show that video and then... Okay, so that is microvillus inclusion disease and the TKO Strong Foundation. My niece and her husband, my nephew-in-law, they created this TKO Strong Foundation, and it's a fun. They do it every year, a big fundraiser at Plat Douche in Franklin Square, and I'll tell you more about that later. I'll give you the address, but it's I believe it's 1132 Hempstead Turnpike, Franklin Square. Well, how's that for a memory? Not bad for an old man. And it's a great fundraiser. I go every year. There'll be rides for the kids. They'll have those blow up the bouncy house and the different slides. There's a great band. There will be a DJ from the radio there, and I believe from the Shark. And it's all on the flyer. I'm going to show the flyer at the end of the show. We'll show you the flyer and we'll go over that again. But it's a great fundraiser, and the money is raised to find a cure for microvillus inclusion disease. So I had to keep saying that. Just like last week, I had Brianna Gervat, and I couldn't. She even said it to me. She says, you're gonna mispronounce my name the entire show," and I did. I did mispronounce it the entire show. But as I said, I got Steve Oakes calling up at 7:25, which is 4:25 his time. So I hope I did that right. The phone lines are open now if you want to call. Phone lines are open. You can call and talk to me, and we could talk about the new well, it's actually, the show was developing, but I've done this before, and you have an idea for a show. It's a lot of work. Anyone who has a podcast or any show like StrongIsland.com, Strong Island Radio and Television.com is a great studio. We have a lot of great shows here, and all of the people that do these shows, they understand that you have an idea, you have a concept, but now you have to work with it. And so the literary game show idea did not work. If you saw the second show, I had a couple of friends on, Nigel Alexander Fullerton and Jack Clunan, and we discussed. Made an instructional video of the show where every time you spoke, you had to write it, but then we would also read original. See, I'm doing it with my hands. I call it myself now. I'm looking. See, I don't know why it's in Italian. You want to shut an Italian up? Have him sit on his hands. Fungal. So we decided, Brianna and I decided that we had so much fun. She was such a great guest. Her first time on TV, and she was so much fun, such a natural, that we decided we'll do a live writers workshop. And you can call in for that. And what we will do is we will be reading original work. Brianna will be reading most likely from Mosaic. I will be reading from the Mama Luke Papers, which is my semi-autobiographical memoir. And I'll probably also read a little bit of Last of the Fangtooth Bastards, which I was going to read tonight, but I have Steve calling, and I thought there's so much going on. It'll be fun. So the lines are open if you want to call. If you're watching on Facebook Live right now, I can't get to my phone. That would be rude, and look at my phone to see who's. But I want to thank you for watching. I want to say hi there. How you doing? And thanks a lot for watching. And enjoy the show. It's only going to get better. And here I'm solo, Benny Rizzuti. I'm sponsoring the TKO. I even have the hat. And they got these cool new hats. I'm going to get them. And what they raffle off, the raffles are amazing. And they have the silent auction for sports memorabilia. They're signed baseball bats. There was a Curtis Granderson baseball bat last year. Eli Manning football. I know right now you're mad at Eli. I know you Giants fans. It's okay. But there's a lot of great sports memorabilia out there. And there are so many. There's a lawnmower that is electric powered, battery powered lawnmower. I'm going to spend a lot of money on tickets and put them in. I want this battery powered lawnmower, and they have a smoker. And my son showed me that because he wants me to get the smoker. So, but I'm going, you learn something. You learn about microvillus inclusion disease. And it's a rare disease that many children are born with, but there is no cure. So they're looking for a cure. I think it's great. I'm so proud of my family, of my niece and her husband, and all my family that's been working, and his family. They work very hard, and this boy, Thomas Kevin Honorado, is cute as a button. He is like the cutest kid in the world, and you wouldn't even know. He's very intelligent, and you wouldn't even know that he has a port, and he must get a line. He must get like intravenous of a feeding tube, and to keep him hydrated. So he has to have that a certain amount of time a day. He must have that, which is a shame. And hopefully one day, I'm not saying hopefully, one day they will find a cure. And if you come down to the fundraiser tomorrow, you will help us to, that money will go donated to, right now they have several doctors who are looking for a cure, and they've given the doctors, I think one doctor, they've given like $500,000, and they've raised some good money. They were, as you saw in that video, they've been on Eyewitness News, they've been in Newsday, they've been on the other local, I believe they've been on Channel 12 and Fios 1. So everyone in this area, the news media has been great. They've been helpful, and as I said, it's a really fun fundraiser tomorrow. There will be a live band. There'll be a DJ there, and it's a radio DJ, and this is the real deal. This is the ultimate fundraiser at Platt Douche Beer Garden, and it's a park, the Platt Douche Park Beer Garden. It's a big place. The food is great. You have to pay for the food separately. There's great beer. There's all kinds of drinks. And as I said, it's fun for the entire family. And it's a lot of fun. So I'm waiting for my buddy to call. And I figure I'll tell you a couple other stories. And then I'll read from his book until he should be calling in like 7 minutes or so. So I want to tell you this story, though. I hope it's a Friday night. I asked someone, I'm not going to mention a name, a friend of mine, young lady that has done, I've done internet shows with her and internet radio and stuff. And she's helped out with some other show that I produced. So I had asked her to come on a few times. And I asked her and she couldn't make it. And then I said, how about this date? No, I can't. And then how about the 27th, right? That's what today is? So I said, how about the 27th? And she said, I'm having a procedure done. So when somebody tells you that, male or female, especially a young lady in her mid-20s or early 20s, you don't want to ask, you don't want to get personal. You're getting a procedure. You always wonder, getting a procedure. So I'm like, oh, okay, but whenever you feel well, this is an open invitation, come on the show. So it was a secret to me, but on Facebook, she wrote what the procedure was today. I guess she just had to get this out of her system. So the procedure was she got a colonoscopy, okay, a young lady. And she's in that robe where, her backside is showing. She said she's half naked. There's 5 doctors in the room. And one doctor says to her, she says, here I am, my butt is showing. I'm waiting for to get this colonoscopy. And one of the doctors says, do you know you look a lot like Selena Gomez? And she said, yeah, let me know if she has the same butthole as me. So I thought that was kind of funny. Are you laughing? I hope you're laughing. I hope you're not mad at me. I thought that was kind of funny. So Steve Oakes is going to call soon. And as I mentioned, he wrote the book Midmen. And this is a bestseller on Amazon. And if I'm wrong, he'll correct me. But I believe I looked at it the other day on Amazon. And he had it has all these awards under it. And it says an Amazon bestseller. So it's selling very well. Book's been around a couple of years now. Midmen, The Modern Man's Guide to Surviving Midlife Crisis. Steve Oakes, GED. So that's General Equivalency Diploma, I believe. Very intelligent guy. He and I, we shared an apartment for a few years together, and we were pals for a long time. Very intelligent. He didn't need school. He was too cool for school, to quote an Eagles song. So I'm going to read a little bit of Midmen, The Modern Man's Guide to Surviving Midlife Crisis by Steve Oakes, GED. I'm going to start with the preface. Wisdom doesn't necessarily come with age. Sometimes age just shows up all by itself. Tom Wilson. I tried Viagra. The results were as shocking to me as they were to everyone else in the room. I have since tried it several more times, but less for shock than for awe. At some point, I will have to switch from saying I tried Viagra to I use Viagra. That time has not yet arrived, as I do not yet need Viagra. I can do just fine on my own, but having tried the stuff, I have learned an important lesson. I am an aging man, and what part of me would more quickly categorize me as a man aging otherwise than my sex organ? I'm sorry, folks, put the kids to sleep, all right? I hope the kids are in bed. When Steve calls, there's no telling what we're going to talk about. Here's how my Viagra adventure unfolded. I was hanging out with a friend of mine. This is one of those close friends you occasionally regret having grown so close to. Not because he's a bad guy, but because his TMI gasket is blown. For instance, if he started his day with a great bowel movement, he would invite you to celebrate it with him. I'm sorry, but I feel stupid and gross high-fiving somebody over the size and consistency of their stool. This is the kind of guy who burps rhapsodically, like Rhapsody. This is the kind of guy who burps rhapsodically in my face and then throws me a What do you think of that? Look, what do you think of that? I think you need to see a gastroenterologist. We'll try that again. I think you need to see a gastroenterologist. I wouldn't even know how to pronounce it if I went to see the guy. I think you're dying inside. That's what I think of that. So I'm hanging out with this friend of mine, and he goes through the post-mortem of his bodily functions and then leans in and whispers, 3 times last night. He's 55, so I assumed that's how many times he got up to pee. About 6 times. That's nothing to be ashamed of, but it's hardly something to brag about. I was wrong. He had sex with his wife 3 times. My first thought was, why did he think it was okay to broadcast his morning poop report to the world, but felt compelled to hush himself to talk about sex? The next thing I thought was, so what? I don't even want to have sex 3 times in one night. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but once feels like plenty. Hey, maybe I'm doing it right. Maybe he had sex 3 times last night and sucked at it every time. Maybe his wife was in the middle of a hot flash thinking, not again. It's not like my wife and I are sex starved. Okay, I don't want to know about that. I'm going to move on. I know his wife very well, too. They're wonderful people. So if you want to know more about that, of the preface, wow, what a long preface. Holy crap, this is like the preface to the King James Version of the Bible. Yeah, the problem. Chapter 1. It's almost 7:25, Steve. Why don't you call me? All right, we'll move on. We'll move along. I want to talk about a couple other books. He should be calling any minute now. So the phone lines are open for him only now. You people had your chance, 7:25. I want to talk about my friend Fran Capo, who I had the pleasure of being on a couple of shows with her. Wonderful. She wrote a book called, we don't have a picture of it to put up there, but it's called Hopeville, The City of Light by Fran Capo. Small little book. You can find this on francapo.com. You can buy this. It's a wonderful book. I read it last year. I really loved it. Do we have a call?
Steve Oakes here.
Hey, how you doing? This is Right to Speak on Strong Island Radio and Television.com, and we are speaking with Steve Oakes. How you doing?
How are you?
Very good. How are you, buddy?
I just did a quick check, and it appears that I have a anus just like Selena Gomez.
You too?
Yes, apparently it's a surgery. It's a procedure. Actually, you can get the Selena Gomez anus. It's trademarked. You have to go to a special doctor.
Yeah, in L.A.?
And you know what? They franchise it. You can anywhere in this country. There's as long as their slogan is we have openings if you do.
Oh, Steve, it's been too long.
I don't think we've actually spoken to literally like we communicate by email and Facebook, but we haven't had an actual person-to-person conversation, I think 10 years.
At least 10 years. It was, as a matter of fact, because with my memory, I do have a good memory, but I have to go to events. So I remember that it was when Eli Manning won his first championship with the Giants. So I think that was like 2007, 2006.
I attach it to the Melvin George roast at the brokerage because I follow comedy, not football.
Okay. Anyway, you said the roast, but I equate. I'm like, I remember the roast, but I remember it was near the winter. It was the fall, right? Close to the winter.
It was cold, actually. It was a cold night.
It was a cold night. Yes. And I have a lot of pictures of you guys. But you would say that's like 2007 maybe, right?
Yeah, right, I think so. 2007, 2008, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that was that was the last time I spoke to you. And with me, I'm very busy. I work a lot of hours. And then I have chores to do when I go home. So I think most of my human contact is on social media. on Facebook.
I think that's fairly. I think that's common of a lot of people. I think that social media. You can't spell social media without social.
In some ways, sometimes we get we get like stupid. We get idiotic on there, and it reminds me of when you were in school and you would be in an
Oh,
auditorium.
I'll never forget. I'll never forget that day.
That day, okay. No, I just when you're in school and you're in an auditorium and an event is going to happen, and before it happens, all the students are sitting and talking, and it's just like this big chatter blur.
Yes.
That's what Facebook is to me.
Yeah, yeah. The difference is we don't have a principal that eventually comes in and says, people, 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 people.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, people, and they get on the microphone.
People.
Keep it to yourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, Steve Oakes,
Yes,
you called from the West Coast. You didn't call to talk about school. I'd like to say I know you since the '80s, and you were my best friend in the '80s. We shared an apartment together, and you're kind of a Renaissance man. You've written several books. You've made a film, a wonderful film that we love at my house.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, my son loves it. I think it was kind of an inspiration to him because my son got has his bachelor's degree in film and television.
I didn't know that, and if that had anything to do with it, I couldn't be more pleased or proud.
Oh,
that's really cool.
yeah. Well, I was trying to find, when he was younger, I was trying to find something that he was in. And when I brought that film home, he watched it several times. He really liked it. And then, anyway, then I found out that, the kid was taking me to the movies all the time. And then I got him a summer camp, a film summer camp, and for 3 weeks. And he loved it so much that he decided that's what he wants to do for a living.
It's great.
So yeah,
it's so cool. And now we're living in a universe where, number one, you don't have to pay developers for film. It's simply it's the rarity to shoot something on film because the cameras are so well developed now for film look, so that you can really self-produce so much more easily. You can really experiment with shooting and technique and stuff. Without having to, mortgage your house or mortgage your parents' house, as the case may be.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's amazing that, like you said, even in Hollywood now, very few directors use actual film. I believe
it's actually notable. It like Tarantino went 70 millimeter on. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second. My bad.
No, go ahead. Keep talking.
I was going to say, like Tarantino, went 70 millimeter on Hateful Eight, which I frankly thought was a waste of the format, but that's not the point. It became notable. That became news.
Yeah, and Christopher Nolan is another one who shoots on 70 millimeter film, and he may.
Right.
I'm a big fan of Nolan. I like The Hateful Eight, but I thought it could be more of a play. It didn't need to be on 70 millimeter. You're right.
It was absolutely a play, and I hated it, but only because I thought it worked ironically with the title.
All right, let's talk about Midmen.
Yes.
Midmen is, I looked on Amazon, and it is an Amazon bestseller.
It was
right?
It was a number. I mean, it isn't every day, but it did reach number one. Yeah.
It did reach number one, and you have several awards on it as well.
9 awards. 9 awards.
9 awards. What awards are they?
You know what? I actually brought up the list because I don't have it memorized, but I have the Amazon page in front of me right now. It won the best comedy humor for international, but these are all best comedy humor actually. International Book Award, the USA Book Award, the Beverly Hills International Book Award, the Next Generation Indie Book Award, and it was a bronze medal in the Reader's Favor competition. And it was also in the same Next Generation Indie Awards, won a finalist for Self-Help. And then it also was a finalist in the Indie Excellence Books Awards. And there's still 2 outstanding that I'm waiting to get results on. And I think, there's a chance my luck has run out, but so I'll be very happy with what I've got, beyond happy.
That's great. And you worked up to this point because you've written other books. You have two National Lampoon joke books.
Yeah,
Uh,
which
you,
is which is more really more editing than writing. I mean, I wrote some interstitial stuff, but overall, if
that was a
and by the
collection.
way, those both sold way more than Midmen because there's
Really?
joke books. Oh, totally. Joke books, yeah, those sold tens of thousands of copies because joke books um, are like horror movies. When they release a horror movie, there is a metric in place because there is a certain audience that will simply go to see horror movies. And so they kind of know they can do some banking ahead of time, knowing that there are people that simply don't miss a horror movie release. So the same thing goes for joke books. When you release a joke book, you hope that it's, they get some word of mouth and the people, you can sell more than just the core joke book buyers. But apparently, and I didn't know this before I was asked to write them, but apparently it's the same system. There are core joke book writers. So when they release a joke book, they have a kind of an experience and a metric that they can follow, and they know they're going to do pretty well.
And their name is known, so like somebody will see their name on a joke book and say, "Oh, I have to buy this person's joke book." Is it
Well,
necessarily?
yeah, well, if it's National Lampoon, that's definitely
Oh
going to help
yeah.
assure sales. Yeah,
Now,
and one of the reasons, maybe the main reason that I even took the gig in the first place, because it was a gig, I didn't come up with it. The editor in chief is a buddy of mine at that time, the then editor in chief, guy named Scott Rubin, wonderful guy named Scott Rubin, who I've written stuff with, asked me to do it, and the real attraction was because I'm not like you remember my act. It really was not like a joke act. You know what I
no.
mean? It wasn't like a two guys walk into a bar act. And but the idea that I could have my name on the same cover of a publication as National Lampoon's logo was, I mean, and this is where you and I go back. I mean, we've been
Yeah.
Lampoon fans for an awful long time, so having that association was kind of an arrival for me as a human.
That's seeing that because when I saw that National Lampoon to have that name right away, you automatically want to pick the book up because
Yeah.
it's a brand name, National Lampoon, and
The most trusted name in comedy. Actually, there was a time when it was the most trusted name in comedy. It was certainly long before I wrote those books, but
right.
but that legacy, means the world to me.
And now it became a brand name because a lot of these people who they love National Lampoon's vacation movies or other than National Lampoon, they don't even know about the magazine.
Oh, what a, I've buddies out here, and of course buddies back on the island that we're just like devotees to some of that old material. I mean, some of these things like Bernie X, My Meter is Running. Some of these like running articles that they had in that magazine, and some of the writers they had in that magazine, and just, I mean, I'm since I didn't go to high school, I think it's very safe to say I learned far more about most things from sources like National Lampoon than I did from formal education.
Oh yeah, no, National Lampoon was a great magazine. Still remember. I have some issues somewhere, and one of my favorites was the gun on the door against the dog's temple. If you don't buy this
That was like a
magazine, we'll
big
shoot
breakthrough.
this
Oh,
dog.
totally. Buy this issue or we'll kill this dog.
Buy this issue or we'll kill this dog. What a funny! It had a
Yep.
it had a list of things to do at the funeral of someone you didn't like. Ask everybody if they saw Johnny Carson last night. Ask the widow on a date.
One of the things that people don't realize that National Lampoon, and maybe they do realize it, maybe they don't care, but National Lampoon was, of course, a spin-off of the Harvard Lampoon, and the Harvard Lampoon was the humor magazine of Harvard University. So the guys that started National Lampoon were guys that were coming out of Harvard, and then National Lampoon begat Saturday Night Live. So that string is very clear. I mean, there's that's a straight line without any bumps. So these guys were not stupid, and so the level of the writing. This is why I say that it was really educational for me, because the level of the writing was so high, but the material was so base that it was the perfect way to spoon feed me a little bit of education.
Yes, yeah. No, I could see that because it brought in a lot of a lot of different comedic elements and brought them together. It made you aware of certain, like Jesus Christ doing Lenny Bruce jokes.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and it
Which
made.
you know, which I think is turnabout is fair play. I think I'm down with that.
Yeah, no, and the magazine, it was like the adult humor magazine to Mad magazine, because
Yeah,
although,
it kind of well, it was kind of it was kind of like you get weaned off of not that Mad was ever bad, and
oh
it's still
no,
pretty
no,
funny if you pick it up, but it was kind of like you go from when you go from like 10 years old, making your way to 12 or 13 years old. There was that depending on the reader, there was that migration. I think a steady path from Mad Magazine to Lampoon.
yeah, yeah, that you're right, and you never, like I never lost interest in Mad. I didn't look at Mad magazine like it was like it was a child's humor magazine, like like it was never beneath me. I always respected it, but National Lampoon seemed to push the envelope, seemed to really go up a notch and do things that uh, present comedy in a way that they couldn't do it on Mad magazine. Underwear for the
Right.
deaf. I mean, what was that?
No, I said right. I just said right.
Pardon?
I just said right.
Oh.
I was agreeing with you.
Yes, but unfortunately, those magazines don't really exist. Mad Magazine, after the publisher, it's the old age is getting to me. I know his name all the time, and I can't think of it right now. Gaines, right? Bill Gaines.
Maddie Simmons.
No,
Maddie
yeah, that
Simmons.
Matty Simmons was National Lampoon, but Mad Magazine was Bill Gaines.
Oh, Bill Gaines.
Right?
And I have a story about that, by the way.
Oh, you do?
William Gaines.
Yes.
There was I had heard when I was very young. I'm going to say I was 11 or 12, and I heard that I don't remember how I heard it that you could call Mad Magazine, you just call Mad Magazine, and ask if you could come over and visit, and they would let you.
I
So
believe that.
I was a ballsy kid. I picked up, and your viewers who are familiar with the classic Mad Magazine writers will know the name Al Jaffe. So I picked up. He did the fold-in pieces on the back and various other articles.
Yes.
He also did snappy answers to stupid questions. He was like a real stalwart, great editor on that magazine.
Yes, he
And
was.
and so I called up and I asked for Al Jaffe. I'm 11 or whatever. And Al Jaffe gets on the phone, and I said, "Yeah, Mr. Jaffe or whatever." I said, "I had heard that if I ask politely, I can actually get an invite to come to the office. I'm a huge fan. I had my father's old collection, by the way. I had Mad magazines, the 25-cent cheap, going all the way back to the beginning with like Bob and Ray articles and
Oh, wow.
Wally Cox
Yeah.
articles and stuff. So I was a real fan, and
Yeah.
I was a second generation fan, and he said, yeah. And I arranged a time, and my father brought me into the city to, I believe, and correct me, I think it's 465 Madison Avenue.
Yes,
If
I
remember
believe
from
so.
right?
Yes.
I might have the number wrong, but I remember they always capitalized the Mad in Madison
Yes.
Avenue. And so we went up there, we went up to the offices, and the next thing I know, I am walking into the Mad Magazine offices.
How cool
And
is that?
There's this hustle and bustle. Dave Berg, if you remember the lighter
Yes.
side,
Yeah, yes.
he had a character named Roger Kaputnik that he would put into all of these lighter side
Right.
articles, and it was a guy with a pipe and a stingy brim fedora and
Yeah.
kind of a tweedy suit. He looked exactly like Roger. He was Roger Kaputnik.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
That boy, what a great experience. I never knew this story before. I
True
didn't know
story.
this one.
So I go through the whole magazine. I see where it's printed and where they're doing art. I mean, an artist who did not do a lot of covers, a guy named Jack Ricard, who at that time, we can timestamp this because the latest issue was the parody of Catch-22, the film Catch-22.
Wow. Yeah.
Which Ricard, so he had done the cover and signed the issue for me, which is hanging on my bedroom wall even to this day. So at the end of the tour, I guess the big finale of the tour, when some kid has the balls to show up, is they bring you to William Gaines's office.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and William Gaines's office. This is the eye of the Mad Magazine hurricane. You walk into this office. Do you remember what William Gaines looked like?
Yes. Yeah, big, heavy-set fellow with almost like Jerry Garcia on a bigger
Yes.
body. He had a Jerry Garcia beard, and his hair was. He looked like if Jerry Garcia gained 100 pounds or so. He was a big man,
Yeah,
right?
actually, at a certain point, I believe Jerry Garcia did gain that 100 pounds. So I think
Yeah, that's
they
possible.
looked much more. And Gaines was graying, and eventually Garcia grayed. So that's a great image for your viewers.
Yes.
So they walk me into his office. His office is festooned, and I wouldn't just use that word if I didn't mean it. His office is festooned with every piece of Mad memorabilia and cutouts and zeppelins hanging from the ceiling and posters and crap all over the desks, and just like it's his big Madison Avenue office, but it's a zoo. It's literally it's like you threw 5 years of Mad Magazine in the air and like blew them apart with buckshot.
I would expect that from him.
Yes,
As
it was like a visual cacophony. And there he is sitting behind the desk looking iconically like himself. And I don't remember our exchange. I'm sure it was very pleasant. I don't remember anything that was said in that room at that time. I just remember approaching his desk sort of like the Scarecrow walking up to the big holographic wizard.
that's a great analogy there. I could see that. You're a young boy. You're 11 years old.
And I'm in heaven. I've just set foot into 11-year-old boy Mad Magazine heaven, and there's God.
There's
It was awesome.
Yeah. Alfred E.
That was
Newman's fault.
it was worth telling that story just to relive it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Anyway, I just want to say quickly to our viewers or our listeners because we're also on radio on Strong Island Radio and TV.com. The show is Right to Speak, and my special guest, I am honored to have Steve Oakes on the show. And Steve Oakes
is mine.
Old pal. Old pal had a lot of great memories. I always think of you. I think of certain things and think of you and I going to the different things we did. I'd go with you to comedy shows. It's a story. I love telling this story. I'm not going to tell it today, but just to mention, you took a gig in New Jersey to open for the band Renaissance.
Sure.
Just for me, you took that
Club
gig.
Benet. Is that still open? Is there still a Club Benet?
Club Benet. I don't know if they're still open, but I doubt they
big
are.
Room, like 700 seater. That was a great room.
Great room. I got to meet because the one thing is that you weren't into their music. They were like progressive rock. They were a progressive rock band, and so they didn't have a lot of money anymore, so they didn't have the big band. They just had two acoustic guitarists and the singer Annie Haslam, who would sing opera. She would sing like operatic. So you opened for them. You had a great killer set, and then the band started, and I went and had a seat next to this beautiful woman. I still remember this beautiful woman. And you come over, and you said, the guy that booked you for the show, the promoter, he told you about this great blues club, like across the street or down the road. So you're like, yo, there's a great blues club, let's go. And I'm like, I'm not going. And you went. You went to the blues club, and I told you, I said, you see this woman I'm sitting next to? And I said, she is there was no one sitting there because after I was in the green room with you finished your set, and then I went for the show, and everybody, the place was packed, and there's this one very attractive woman sitting by herself in a booth, and I said, is anyone sitting here? And she said to me, no, I'm with Michael. So I said, oh, okay, you're with Michael. So I sat down, and then it hit me. She was with Michael Dumford, the lead guitarist of the band.
Whoops.
So yeah, so I'm sitting with Michael Dumford's friend, and the late Michael Dumford, by the way, he passed away. But
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting with his friend, checking out one of my all-time favorite bands. Even though I know a lot of people aren't into them, I was a big fan of progressive rock, and I'm with them. So you went to this blues club, and I was going to meet you after the show. So at that time, you and I, we both had good hair, and people kind of thought we might have been related or whatever. And I guess the band didn't see you anyway. So when the show ended, the band members were coming up to me and the roadies telling me what a great set I had. So I had a great.
You know what? I remember that because I think I told. There was another aspect to that. Not only did we look somewhat alike, I believe the way I got you in and the way I introduced you around, I believe I said you were my brother.
No, you said I was your road manager. The guy you gave me business
you were my
cards.
road manager.
And I was your road manager. You gave me business cards, and the promoter went up to the owner and he said, "This is Benny Rizzuti, and he's his road manager." And the owner, who looked like my grandfather, said, "I don't need any. You don't have to tell me anything about Benny Rizzuti. He can do whatever he wants in this club." And you guys were like, "What?" And he said, "He's Sicilian." So I said, "Oh, yes." So he was from Sicily, and he knew by my last name that I was Sicilian. So it was like that bond thing, which was cool, you know. So he let me. So after the show, people are telling me what a great set I had, and I was very funny. And I was telling them, "No, that was Steve O. I'm his road manager. I'm Steve O." And now I am 3 feet away from Annie Haslam, who I thought was absolutely beautiful at the time, and I loved her voice. And I'm 3 feet from her, and she's talking to some friends of hers from the Metropolitan Opera House or something, and talking about some show and I'm right behind her saying, "Oh my God," right behind her. And I was telling all these people, "I'm not Steve-O. That wasn't me. I didn't perform." Annie turns around, and I said, "Annie, I just want you to know I'm a big fan." And she said, "I thought you were absolutely hilarious. I loved you." And I said, "Thank you so much." And I wasn't going to tell her I didn't perform. And then I said I wasn't going to tell the story, and I did. And then they came to Long Island a few years later, and I used that I was Steve-O and got backstage to talk to her and Michael Dumford again.
That's very funny.
At a club, yeah. So I used that for a second time.
Like you've gotten more play off my name than I have.
Oh, you did. You were, as I mentioned, you were a great stand-up comedian. You were one of not exactly the pioneers on the Long Island comedy scene, but you were one of the guys that picked up the torch, and you were part of when Long Island comedy really took off, and there were more clubs, and there was a lot more there was a lot more entertainment. And you guys were the guys that if you went to an open mic, and you guys went to that open mic, you performed as though you were at an audition, which you don't see that with the new generation of comedians.
I left, and obviously another generation came up, and I'm sure another one since. But I've watched. I haven't seen any comedy on the island, but I've watched some video of a couple of guys that I don't. One that I know pretty well, and one that I don't know that well, but we're friends.
Yes.
And I got to say, there's those guys like Stevie GB and Joe Starr.
Oh yeah, well.
So I've watched some video of those guys, and I got to say, there was a kind of comedy that was insisted upon on Long Island. It was very competitive back in my day. Can I say that? Am I old enough to say back in my day? I can say that.
Show your age.
Yeah. But back then it was very competitive because, we're like, if we're doing a lineup, you have to follow whatever. You have to follow Rich Jenny. You know what I mean? Like, you have to follow, like, right?
Right. Hal Spear.
Yeah. Oh my God. So there was a real concentration on on a jokes per minute, literally like a jokes per minute, where you had to like hit a punchline every 10, 12 seconds, or you're not going to get the gig. You're certainly not going to headline. And when I watch, and then basically to get that ratio up there, you're doing premise, you're trying to get a laugh on the revealing the premise. Then you're going to hit the punchline behind the premise. Then you got about 3 tags after that. Then you got a segue. Hopefully you get a laugh on the segue and you go into the next subject or expand on the subject you're in. And that's, if there's any such thing as a formula, that's kind of what the formula was. And if you watch guys like Joe Starr and Stevie GB, and I wish I knew more guys, Joey.
Oh, Joey Cola, yeah. But Joey's
literally
from
started out, moments after me, and we were connected at the hip. And we're still, by the way, extremely close.
Yes.
But when you have to like hit those punchlines that hard, that fast, that's extremely challenging. And these guys, at least the 2 guys I've seen, have I think more than acceptably taken that mantle. These guys are, they're carrying on a proud tradition of just beating a set to death with punchlines.
Yeah, but those guys, Stevie GB and Joe Starr, they're like the generation after you. So they're not
right,
like the
exactly.
younger.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying. So it's sort of a baton was passed, but the style remains the same. The Long Island style remains the same.
Yeah, Joe Starr is amazing. Stevie GB's a great friend of mine. We do a lot of shows together. I even gave him a room I used to run, and he runs that room now, and I'm invited. And Joe Starr, I saw Joe Starr about 15, 16 years ago now at a open mic in McGuire's that Joan St. Ange ran, and I was taking Joan's class. So I saw Joe Starr go up, and he did 10 minutes, and he was just absolutely amazing. And I thought of him as, to me, he's a cross between Robert Klein and Dom DeLuise. And what I mean by that is,
interesting.
He could be an intelligent comedian, that could be, because when I say Robert Klein, I think of Robert Klein as comes off as a very intelligent man, and that makes you laugh, like cerebral comedy. And then Dom DeLuise is total silliness comedy.
Can hit it with a take.
Right. And Joe Starr does both of that in his act. He does.
He posted a picture on Facebook today, actually, that of him with his older, probably from then. Actually, it's probably about 15 years old, with his eyes very seriously crossed, and he looks very ridiculous. You can see how he could totally sell it physical. By the way, here's a fun trivia fact, and you can check with him on this because I didn't realize it until he told me fairly recently. I named Stevie GB.
Yes, yeah, I knew that because
I didn't
because of CBGB's.
Well, he and I were punk rock buddies.
Right, you were punk
before either of us were into comedy. Actually, I knew him before I became a comic. We would hang out at a place called, I think it was called the Record Stop in Ronkonkoma. It was a record store, and we were both into the same. We're both punk rock fans. We're both new wave fans. We're both huge Elvis Costello fans. We both communicate still about the band Sparks.
Yes.
He likes the newer
he just
stuff
saw
more
them.
than I do, but we have that in common.
He just saw Sparks recently.
Yes, I know. We actually literally communicate regularly.
Right, and I knew that about Stevie, but with Joe Starr now, I had seen him, and I thought he was amazing, right? And I saw him a couple of times. He was amazing. Now I'm doing this open mic on a Friday night at Dumpy. It's in Islip. It was this guy who owned the bakery on Main Street in Islip opened up a room next door, and there were, back then it was I'd say like 1998, 99. There were coffee houses that became had a resurgence for a while. So the bakery opened up the store next door, and it was a coffee house, and it was this Dumpy coffee house. I had a Fender amp with a microphone and a mic stand, and I'm doing open mic there. And it turned out all these comics, who are, most of them are headliners now, would show up. But one night, I'm doing it, and I didn't even know who was going to show up till that night. And one night, doing the show, because this one woman was coming on, and she was friends with Joe, and she shows up with Joe Starr. And Joe was very shy. Like, I just knew him. We just said hi. And he was shy. So she comes up to me and says, "Do you think you can put Joe up on the show tonight?" And I admired. I was such a fan of Joe Starr that I walked over and I said, "Joe, what do you want to do? You want to close the show? Do as long as you want." And then from then on, Joe would come down almost every week because he was working on a long set. So he wanted to have a long set because he was going to open for Chris Rush. So he would come down and work on the set, and he was close. And the beauty of Joe is Joe loves to be a teacher of comedy. So I would have a lot of young guys come on.
Anybody would be lucky to get the lesson.
Oh, he gave some great lessons, and some of those guys, like I said, I thought it was a dumpy place. And Joe Curry, who also is a headliner out here now, and good friends with Joe, Joe Curry always tells me, "Benny, that club, that was a place for us to work out." And the audience would come and go because, Islip Main Street, you would get young people, you'd get people just walking around the town. So sometimes you'd have a really nice crowd. Sometimes you'd just have a couple of people. And it became the type of place where other comedians would just come to hang out because I told them, show up and go up. So they would come out, and sometimes they were the best audience for each other.
Boy, that doesn't happen out here. They do these bringer shows out here where everybody just sits there and looks at their smartphone until it's time for their set.
It's like that here too now. It's the same.
Bad. Let me just jump in before we go too far afield from what you just discussed. I want you to know that you inadvertently brought our conversation full circle.
I did. I don't realize I did because I did it inadvertently. So what did I do?
You did it totally inadvertently. Chris Rush used to write for National Lampoon.
That's right. Yes. Yes, he did.
And for comedy students that might be watching your show, find the first Rush by Chris Rush. Hell, find Chris Rush. Go to Jersey. I don't know if he's gigging or what, man, but there's the guy who, like, if you look at, you went back to Hal Spear and some of the other guys that started out on the island, Richie Intervini and these guys, really Chris Rush was actually the precursor to the style we were just talking about. He was locking this stuff down when we were in the 70s. We were kids when this guy was nailing this.
Yes, that's right. We were kids, and I had the opportunity to see him only after you saw him and told me, "Benny, you got to go see this guy. He's funny, and he's like has a little bit of Lenny Bruce in him." And
yes.
And I saw him, and he was amazing. He was very funny, and you could probably still find his albums. Maybe they're on vinyl, but and Chris Rush is on Facebook, so I know he's on Facebook. Anyway, had so much fun.
Well, can't say enough great things about Chris Rush. So any comedy fan needs to go out and dig up some audio of Chris Rush or find where he's performing live and just take some of that in while you can because that's the good stuff.
Anyway, Steve, we're winding down. We're at the end of the show, and I just want to say once again, you're watching the show Right to Speak with my special guest, Steve Oakes, author of Mid-Men, The Modern Man's Guide to Surviving Midlife Crisis. Go to Amazon. You'll find other books. You'll find the National Lampoon joke books. And Steve, when I originally asked you to come, you said, are we going to be able to do 15 minutes? We did 35. So I think we did pretty good.
I didn't even realize that. The time has just, you know what, we need to just get back on the phone off air and keep talking.
We will. Probably tomorrow I have a fundraiser, the TKO fundraiser. But perhaps Sunday, if you're not doing anything.
I expect to be around, but let's well you know us, we're on Facebook. We'll figure it out. We'll get back on the phone and I didn't swear, did I? By the way, I didn't actually swear on the air.
No. We said butthole. We told that we talked about Selena Gomez's butthole, but that it's a procedure which I'm going to call up my plastic surgeon and ask him if he could do that for me.
Yeah, it involves some rouge and a drawstring.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. Thanks a lot for calling. Sure. It was fun, and it was great to finally connect. Like you said, we haven't spoken in 10 years, And what better time to
Ridiculous.
do it than now? We're in the 21st century, so you have to do it on social media.
Hey, I'm just glad there's witnesses.
We didn't. There's so many stories we could have spoken about. But anyway, thank you again. Thanks so much for being on the show, and I'll call you Sunday. I'll talk to you Sunday.
Perfect.
Say
And
hi to everybody for me. Say hi to all of your friends and family on the West Coast.
Will do.
Send my love. And
Back at you, please. Do the same for me, and thank you so much for having me on. Excuse me, I had a perfectly obviously half an hour went by like it was a minute. That was so nice.
We didn't even we said to fill time we were going to talk about Blade Runner 2049. We never even mentioned it. So
Next time.
We'll save that for Sunday.
Perfect.
Hey, Stephen, thank you again. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you Sunday. Take care. Thanks.
Back at you. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Yes. And I want to thank you all everyone who was watching. We went a little over time. You're watching Right to Speak on Strong Island Radio and Television.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you November 8th on a Wednesday, 8 p.m. with Brianna Gervat. I remembered. TKO Strong Foundation, Platt Douche. See you then. Take care. Good night, everybody. Thanks. Thank you for watching or listening. Thank you very much.